How are we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Ron Swanson. We are live for another episode of Code Red with Gary Waterman. Gary's been on the show before. Gary is the real deal, and we're going to delve into corruption, fraud, let our government and the elite powers that seem to pull the strings have a little slap to the face. Gary's going to take us through some of the incidents that he's gone through recently, and it's great to have you back, Gary, mate. It really, really is. How are you doing? First of all, take us through and introduce yourself to some of the newbies as well, if you can.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Ron. Really appreciate it. I haven't been on for a little while. So those of you who don't know me, I was in the police for 18 years. I was in Kent Police and then Dorset Police, and I resigned voluntarily, obviously, in 2018. And from that time, I basically uncovered a very systematic, huge problem of fraud linking to the government, the police, the intelligence agencies, politicians, councillors, and it's basically the forgery through the Companies House registration system, where they're actually forging incorporation documents and the actual register itself. So it's huge. And what this does also, because there's been no verification since 1844 when Companies House first started, and what I mean by that is no names have been checked, no addresses have been checked, false names have been able to be used, false addresses, empty addresses where there's no affiliation. And this knowingly and deliberately facilitates the laundering of money in relation to conflicts, terrorism, crimes against children, which seems to be a massive, huge part of this. And since this has been exposed, they've been panicking. There's been loads of stuff happening since this exposure has happened. They're now trying to claim that there's an element of verification going on, but they're allowing the laundering to occur through the non-verification element of certain parts of those companies. So, yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And obviously, I'm getting a bit of backlash for it. As soon as you try and stand up to the establishment and you are providing, evidence which is pretty concrete and irrefutable in relation to it, you're going to become a target. And sorry, go on, Ron.
We've seen it multiple times. Call it whistleblowing, call it exposing, whatever you want to call it. The weight of the information that you find and the complications behind trying to explain it, I think, is something that we're going to really try moving forward, because I've always wanted to break all this down, because what we're going to talk about today, I'm sure this is the more up-to-date bits and bobs, shall you say. But your research goes on. I mean, like I say, you were in the police force 18 years. We have a lot of friends of the channel who have a similar experience within the police force that you've had, and they've paid the price heavily for speaking out as well. And you're no exception to this backlash and the realities of this too, because backlash is a bit of an understatement, right? I mean, like, it's a polite way of saying enemy of the state in some way,
Yeah, I mean, they've got a real problem with me because they can't use the normal sort of Mental Health Act side of things. They can't use defamation, slander, or anything like that, because everything that I'm doing is backed up by the evidence that everybody else can check and see that it's true. So that's why I probably got away quite lightly until recently. I mean, I've had very little actually happening to me other than them making me feel that my life was going to be taken at times, and various other things. But more recently, I think they're realizing that because this evidence is so strong, and the strategy that I'm proposing is probably going to be what changes this forever, they've more recently sort of stepped up. It appears their targeting of me. But so
other than you fearing for your life, nothing major's going on other than fearing for your life from the government. No big deal, Gary, right? No big deal. So how do you deal with that? I mean, honestly, how do you? I mean, obviously you're not in a house right now. I mean, it's fun to sit here as a podcaster and as a member of the audience or whatever, and you hear what you're saying. But this isn't a TV show. This is reality. And I think it needs to be reiterated in 2025, because so many people are consuming so much content. And this is reality. When you expose to a level that Gary's doing, you don't then choose to just live in a tent for a laugh. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a real downside. So just take us through the quick version, if you will, of what's brought you to where you are now, and then we'll go into the meat of it all, Gary, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So it started with something relatively small, as you know, I said to you previously. So me identifying an issue within a company, and then it basically snowballing from there. Okay. And it just escalated and escalated and escalated. And every time I tried to find out what was going on, I was given more evidence to expose an even bigger element of this. And every single time, I just acquired more and more and more evidence until it got to the point where I realized, okay, we're now talking major international government fraud involving presidents, prime ministers, but not only major international government fraud, but how that connected to pretty much all of the world's problems. So I knew from once there was some few trigger points, and as I started hitting those trigger points of evidence that I was getting and realizing how big this was, I realized that, okay, this is going to turn out to be probably something pretty amazing in terms of the exposure that it's going to cause to then lead to a resolution in the problems that it's related to. And I think my strength, I mean, you said, how do I cope with it? I mean, there's been certain things, I don't really want to get too religious here, but there's been certain things that have happened to me that can only be some sort of divine element.
You can get religious. You can get religious. It's okay. It's a safe space for you, Gary. It's a safe space. Okay. I might be a pagan, but I've learned to, you know, I believe in all the gods. So get as religious as you want, my guy. It's fine.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, there's certain things that have happened to me that I can't explain unless it's some sort of divine intervention in all of this. And I think that is because I've had that and I've realized how big this is. I basically got this mindset of, okay, well, this is obviously happening for a reason. This evidence is obviously coming out for a reason. There's nothing special about me whatsoever. So therefore, it's going to be about this evidence. And this evidence, I started to realize it was starting to become the key, as in the key to most of the world's problems. And I'm not even exaggerating on that, because I found, as I've said to you, it links to the international conflicts. I've confirmed that most terrorist incidents actually go to the same companies and therefore the same people, which means we're being lied about the terrorist side of things. I obviously found the connections to the children on a vast, vast level. You know, this has now been linked to the Pizzagate scandal with Hillary Clinton, the Hampstead child abuse inquiry. The children appear to have been died.
The only word we can't say, you can just say it once, was that one that began with H there, right? We can't talk about that because definitely no dodginess in the government. Government's brilliant, mate. I just want to say, if anyone from MI5 is watching right now, you're doing a great job. Stand-up job. You're nailing it. Can't wait for my ID card. Brilliant, mate. Okay.
So then,
yeah, can't talk about that.
So you know, I realised how big this was becoming, and I realised that they weren't taking me out. You know, they weren't getting rid of it. They were making me feel as though my life was going to be ended. And then I found connections, for whatever reason, to all three of my families in my life. Like, we're talking quick connections to the main people involved in what's going on in the world at the moment. And I had absolutely no idea. So I think basically, in answer to your question, I feel as though there's a purpose in what I'm doing and it's meant to be happening. And that very likely, for whatever reason, I appear to be protected in terms of physically.
I'm with you. Now, do you know what?
Yeah.
I listened to a story a couple of weeks ago on the train, a couple of months ago on the train, and it got me thinking about you. And it was a story of a guy in America who lived near a government facility that specialized in intercepting alien transmissions, right? But it was a cover for them basically just spying on everybody, right? Yeah. And the government knew that this guy was tuning into their frequencies and started feeding this guy what he wanted to hear about aliens, to the point where he thought aliens were going to come to his house. And it got me thinking about the weaponization of information against whistleblowers, right? And what do you ever feel like you've been fed something, Gary? Like you're like, they're trying to lure me down a self-destructive path where they can turn around and be like, oh, it's just crazy Gary. We'd rather have him on the hook gobbling up our nonsense than having him actually doing what he's doing, which is putting together the world's longest and most powerful PowerPoint presentation in fraud and world government. Let's be honest. Do you ever feel like you are getting spoon-fed stuff that's been weaponized against you? And if you have, can you give us an example of it, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to think of all theories in this, and I've had some recent conversations with people actually saying, you know, I have to consider, has all of this all been set up as some sort of a plan against me? And then the trouble is, you're talking hundreds of people that have been sent my way. And then you've got to look at the evidence isn't as straightforward bit of evidence. You're talking a chain of evidence, a very complex chain of evidence that's been set out within these records, which is then supported by the evidence that corroborates it, whether it be news articles, whether it be, you know, other internet-based research. So then you've got to consider, okay, well, it can't be set up. I mean, because what would be the motive for that? Because you can't undermine somebody by doing that if you've got the records proving everything you're saying, and everybody else is verifying everything you're saying. I mean, I've had comments today, not today, of the last few weeks, and it's really gaining momentum. And they're saying, Gary, you're changing the world with this evidence. I've verified everything that you've said, and it's literally all true. It's literally all true. And I've done it in such a way that it can be verified. But I've had to initially spend a lot of time securing the evidence offline, knowing full well that they may try and remove the evidence from online. And lo and behold, about a month ago, the National Crime Agency suddenly removed 11,500 companies. So this tells you that they're panicking. The intelligence agencies have all confirmed as being connected to this very, very quickly. I've got the research, confirmed that, put it into the document. But in answer to your question, yes, I have considered that, but it just can't be the case. So then you come back to, well, why have I found this? You know, why have I found this, and why has nobody else found this? You did have Gordon Bowden, which I think you're probably aware of, an ex-military guy who had found an element of the non-verification within the Companies House records. In other words, where the addresses were not being checked, he identified an address of 788 to 790 Finchley Road in London, which was an empty address. And they had over 260,000 companies registered there, including Tony Blair's companies, mafia members, dictators, politicians, etc. And of course, if that's an empty address, then there's no litigation continuity. So you haven't got anyone there to go and actually hand a letter to for any illegitimate activity with these companies. Now that itself.
No, just interrupt you. Just for everyone who's watching, you've got to understand. Gary and I are hopefully this is the time to start breaking all this down, because what you're going into now, Gary, when people hear it, it doesn't really sound like a big deal. You know, a company house is registering a company. It doesn't have addresses. It sounds like something that is so like mundane that people just instantly sort of go back to their life. But how crazy is all of this and what you've found? Because it really is the first domino that topples all this to the ground. Is this company house and these addresses? Like, if you can, and again, Gary and I will figure out a way of doing a series on this where everything's broken down, because I think it needs to be that. I think we need to be able to go, and if you want to know more about this, go to episode 2 where Gary goes, you know, deep into this. But just how much of a big deal was that discovery, Gary, when it comes to Companies House?
Yeah, well, the non-verification isn't really the big discovery. That shows you that they're obviously using empty addresses. Now, why would they do that? You know, why would you make sure there's no accountability and liability? Now, obviously, a lot of people have been drawn into the Companies House system. Many people have started up companies, whether they're limited liability or whatever, not knowing about the real crimes going on behind it. And that's, you know, nobody needs to feel guilty if they're part of that. Nobody knew that children were being targeted as a result of what people have become part of, and they've drawn a lot of people into it. But if the best way to explain this is on a simple level, why is this so important? Well, because what they've done is, first of all, it's a crime under their own legislation. Okay, that's the first thing we need to understand. So therefore, the whole thing falls down, because you can't have a government, a police force, and intelligence agencies with a financial system in place that actually breaks their own laws that they're telling everyone else to go by.
Sure.
That's the most critical part of this. All right, that means the whole thing has to stop. All right. Why is it so important? Well, it's so important because what they've done through the forgery is remove any accountability and liability at all, because you can't hold a criminal organization that's been created through a system of forgery accountable, especially when false names, false addresses are being used. It's just not possible.
It's the registration that legitimizes the criminality, basically, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it removes the accountability and liability is the best way to put it. You can't hold a person to...
That's slick, Gary. That's slick.
All
That's
right.
a slick move. That's what I'm saying. That's a slick move. You know, that is slick.
Yeah. I mean, they've been very clever what they do, and they actually set it up. The reason Companies House was set up right back in 1844 was politicians believed that it would be a way to regulate and prevent fraud. It's actually been used for completely the opposite. It's a complete inversion. In fact, everything has been inverted. You may have heard, and many people have been talking about the inversions of things. And what I mean by that is the charitable organisations, for example, such as Save the Children, they're actually linked into the fraud, and now they're being investigated for child trafficking. So it's a complete inversion in everything they're doing. And the big element in this, what this enables them to do is launder money through these criminal companies. Okay, that's what everyone needs to understand, because there's no accountability and liability, so they can move money through the companies without it affecting anybody personally. So this includes the money that's stolen from the masses through the taxation system. So this will be worth trillions in tax.
So what we're saying is this is the old school washing of money on a global scale through false businesses. So, metaphorically speaking, commit an atrocity, steal a bunch of cash, run it through your fictitious Airbnbs, metaphorically speaking. Cash comes out the other end, clean, ready to commit more atrocities with. Basically, that's the layman's terms, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the money can be put into tangible assets. And this is why you're seeing the likes of Michelle Mone with the yachts and Petro Medro. It's actually been in the news again recently, where they were her and her husband were forced to pay 122 million back into the government. That's because of this forgery. For example, the post office scandal, we're all aware of that. Rishi Sunak described it as the biggest miscarriage of justice in the UK's history. That's because of this fraud. That's not to do with an IT issue. All right, I've got the evidence. It actually links very closely to the company that I was removed from for refusing to forge bank documents.
I think getting us to a layman's term on this is a massive achievement, right? Because that is the most simplistic, watered down version of your findings, right? It is based around this corruption. And again, I'm sorry for the audience how we're having to dumb this down to like a 12-year-old's level just for Ron. But it's important because Gary's information is a lot. Sometimes Gary will speak and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm getting the key words here. So when I give you my stupid little analogies, I hope you understand that it's getting that understanding of it, Gary, in a simplified format for people to digest. And what we're seeing now, right? This ID cards, this control, the Child Safety, the Internet Safeties Act, mate. That was the biggest bait and switch. It was unreal. It was all about the kids, Gary. Okay? It's all about the kids, keeping the kids safe, right? And we've got 12,000 people in jail for tweets. Okay? Like, it's mind-blowing. And how long have you seen this coming for, Gary? How many years ago should we have started to listen to Gary because of what is happening now? Like, how much of this was on the cards through your findings?
Well, I only started finding out about it in 2022. You know, I believed absolutely everything I was being told by the government and the organisations prior to that. So, you know, I'm as guilty as everyone for not realising this was going on. And it was only through, as I said, the build-up of the evidence that I realised, not only realised it, but was able to prove it. And this is why the head of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, announced that he was stepping back as the chair within 3 months of 3 days, of me sending the evidence to the World Economic Forum, the FBI, NATO, and the United Nations. So, you know, it's clearly the issue. I mean, there's so many things happening. Peter Mandelson was recently sacked, just as an example. He was the US ambassador. This was, a month ago? Yeah. And Peter Mandelson, via the Companies House records, links immediately to everything that I was exposing through CERN, which is, for whatever reason, all of the evidence converges on the collider technology. So you've got the... All right.
Do you know what? So, just when you said CERN there, I was like, oh no. Like, because if you've not ruined your own weekend going down a rabbit hole about CERN, right? And there's some fun ones. Start off with the Mandela effects, right? Have a little play around with what happened to our realities, because Gary, policeman, 18 years, Gary, serious with exposing. But CERN is where things get a little bit Marvel Universe but hardcore reality, because they're building a bigger one, Gary, right? They're building a bigger one that goes through like 3 countries or something like this. Hit us with it, Gary. Like I'm okay. I've accepted the nightmares that are going to come from tonight. So,
I mean, this is a whole nother big subject, but if you want to talk about it, we will. So it's very clear that from my evidence, what appears to be the main motive for this money laundering appears to be to do with the technology surrounding the colliders. So you've got 2 colliders that are active in the world, according to the research. You've got CERN, which is based in Geneva in Switzerland, and that was actually activated for the first time in 2008. But you've also got another collider that most people don't know about called the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, which is in New York. And that was started to be built in 1991, and they activated it for the first time in 2000, the year before the World Trade Center disaster, which I don't think is going to be a coincidence. Okay. Now, there's a lot of stuff I could tell you prior to that, some really important stuff leading up to that, but it's very clear that all of the evidence I've got converges on this technology, and it's looking as though I'm sort of starting to realize why. And what you said is absolutely right. They're trying to build a larger one, which was under the Future Circular Collider program, the FCC.
This is all we're missing is a skull-shaped layer hanging off the side of a mountain. We're talking about a global scam to hundreds of millions of pounds to be filtered into a reality god particle. This is as evil genius as it gets, Gary. We're just missing, like I say, the skull-shaped layer where the helicopter comes out the mouth. Do you know what I mean? That is the level of evil we're dealing with here. It is mind-blowing if that's where everything, because the children is one thing, right? But when we start delving deep into the real spiciness of CERN, interdimensions, other realities, all of this, it all starts tying in with stories that you hear about child sacrifice to dimensional beings. Call it demonic, whatever word works for you people, insert it there. And it starts painting a terrifying reality, because CERN is not where I thought we were going to end up this evening, Gary. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to touch on the subject, but it's absolutely very, very relevant to everything that I'm exposing. And just to go back to, Peter Mandelson, so he links to CERN Limited via the Company's House Research. CERN Limited, a company called CERN Limited, started in 2010, and it dissolved as I continued to expose the fraud, in 2024. Loads of collider-related companies have, or say loads, you've got another one called Colliders, I think it's Collider or Colliders Limited. That dissolved as well this year as I started to expose the connections to CERN. So, but Peter Mandelson also connects to the research, and I won't mention the specific case, but something we mentioned earlier also links to Peter Mandelson. So it's very relevant to all of this, and I think why it's relevant is because of the connection to the children, and you're talking tying into to falsified biblical prophecies and things like that, which we could go into a lot of detail about that. I mean, Peter Mandelson, for example, he was sacked because of emails that he sent to Jeffrey Epstein in 2019.
Yep.
Jeffrey Epstein was involved in a meeting with CERN scientists and Stephen Hawking on the 19th of April, I believe it was, 2012, less than 3 months before CERN actually discovered the Higgs boson or God particle. Okay, I don't think that's a coincidence at all. A lot of people don't realize that Jeffrey Epstein was actually really into his science. When you research Stephen Hawking, on the incorporation document for one of his companies is a name called Nigel Leonard Blood. Nigel Leonard Blood is on the incorporation document for Elon Musk, one of Elon Musk's companies. And Elon Musk links to a company called Jesus Copyright Limited. All right. So this meeting took place in April 2012. The year before is when Jimmy Savile died, on the 29th of October 2011. Okay, which I don't think is any coincidence with the timing with CERN finding the Higgs boson or God particle the next year. And obviously 2012 was the end of the Mayan calendar. Okay, and the end of the Mayan calendar, they speculated that it would be the end of the world through one of several means. One was that a black hole may appear suddenly at the center of the galaxy, causing the world to end. The other one was planet Nibiru or X hitting Earth.
Yeah.
So what it looks like from the evidence, because there's also an article that claims that Stephen Hawking was trying to get CERN to create a black hole on Earth. Okay, there's actual article confirming that, bearing in mind everything else I'm telling you.
100%. 100%. Like, we've got to, because it's so easy. Again, God particle, 9/11, Nibiru, all of these things are things that people will hear and they'll just crunch on them for a second and move on, right? You've got to understand, the minute that the bloodlines invent the Stargate, okay, that means they can start pillaging all the other dimensions, okay? If you don't think that there's going to be a poor version of Earth that they're looking for, where man's so primitive that we can just go and dig up all the resources on those planets, on those dimensions, and bring them back. I know that sounds wild, okay? Like, Gary, I actually feel like somewhere in an office in a deep buried facility is a monitor from a satellite right above your tent, right? Just on the screen, right? Just on the screen right now, somewhere. They're listening to us right now. So a big shout out to you, Shadow Company Agency. But I just know, right? I just know. So if that's the case, I want the person who's watching that to just tell somebody in their work that the guy who you're watching on the podcast with Gary on the screen has just called you out, because that's banter right there. We can all have a laugh, even if we are an evil shadow government piece of staff member. We can still have a laugh together. So CERN, like, I'll be honest with you, Gary, like, we need to lay out a series with you and get all the information up to this point out, right? We're not going to focus too heavily on it tonight, because CERN takes the biscuit for me, right? Because the CERN's no jokes. CERN is the thing of nightmares for me, right? The weather control and the fact that apparently we're just using satellites to take out narco boats now and no one's talking about it. You know, Donald Trump's just like, oh, we took out this boat. Yeah, you took it out with a satellite weapon, right? It just goes, and the boat's gone. Mad, right? CERN and this God particle is the very definition of what the bloodlines, these cabals, have at the center, the power and control to be the ruling God on this earth, to have the power of destruction and creation. And opening up a black hole on Earth, that is mad, right? That is a madness right there. It really is. So Gary, when we look at the biblical side, the ritualistic side, the cabal, the elites, all of this, the stuff that slipped into society, the Epsteins, the Diddies, all of this, the real terrifying nature is still to be discovered. I mean, I interviewed a woman who put it in a perspective for me that these people believe that they will get back the opposite of what they do. So can you imagine how good the opposite of murdering a person is, right? So the opposite of killing someone must be amazing because of how bad killing someone is. And then you do the same analogy on a baby or a child. These people are believing that the more horrific act they commit, the more positive response that they'll get. And where do you see this, that with the CERN and with these global elites? What is the end game for this? Where is all this heading, in your opinion? For me, I gave the analogy of us going and stealing all the gold from other realities, sure, but where do you see this going? Is it weaponization? Is it convincing us that there's a biblical time coming? Like, what is the end game, do you think?
Well, first of all, I think we've got to consider that they've set all of this up as a mass deception against humanity.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's go, Gary. I'm here for it. Let's go. Take it away.
We do have to consider that all of this evidence has been put in place for the right people to find it as a deception to test humanity on how they deal with it. We have to consider that. I'm not saying that is the case. Sure. At the moment, I have to perceive that all of the threats that I'm finding are potentially real, and therefore I'm advising accordingly on what we should be doing. So that's the first thing we need to work out. Now, if those threats are real, and at the moment I have to perceive that they are, all of the evidence suggests that they're trying to falsify biblical prophetic events on Earth and potentially even a tribulation period.
Okay.
So if you look, I've got a bit of tickle in my throat. So if you go back to 1989, okay, the World Wide Web was created by a guy called Tim Berners-Lee. in 1989. And Tim Berners-Lee had worked for CERN, and it was actually created for CERN. A lot of people don't realise that. So the World Wide Web was created for CERN. So that was in 1989. Now, Tim Berners-Lee happened to live in the same town in Dorset where the people that initiated my removal from the company where this all started lived. Not only that, but he worked for a couple of organisations in Bournemouth and Ferndown, which is in Dorset. And one of those companies that I've researched goes almost immediately to Export Manor Freehold Limited, so the company that I was removed from. So this is all really connected. But so that was in 1989. In 1990, you had the Gulf War, which is actually all connected to this as well. And I suspect that the Gulf War was staged to set up a collaborative effort in relation to the company's house fraud with the Middle East, because you had that in 1990. It ended in 1991 in February, which was when, not February, but in 1991, David Icke came out claiming that he was acting on behalf of the God said. Okay, and he went on Terry Wogan, and he said that the world will be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. So I tried approaching David Icke before I knew that quite a few months ago, had an interview with his son. Anyway, I've now found connections via the company's house records that links him from two directions with the intelligence agencies. Now, he's from a professional footballing background, and pretty much all football companies, unfortunately, are fraudulent entity companies, and they're the perfect organisation to launder money through them and hide them under the footballers' wages. Okay. So, excuse me. I don't know why I'm coughing. Yeah, I haven't had a cough.
It's an energy weapon, Gary. It's an energy weapon. Move the tape. Move the tape. It's an energy weapon.
Something through the phone. So David Icke came out and said the world was going to be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. So we have to consider that he was positioned by the intelligence agencies to say that. Excuse me. So 1991, that same year, is when they started building the relativistic heavy ion collider. Okay, which is the collider in New York that I told you about. And when they started building that, scientists came forward and said, look, we're a bit concerned this technology might create a black hole on Earth. They actually started talking about that in 1991. So move forward, and then obviously the collider, as I've said, was activated in 2000, the year before the World Trade Center disaster. David Icke then came out in 2006. He did a second interview with Terry Wogan and obviously started talking about the World Trade Center disaster, because it's happened from his previous since his last interview. Anyway, it turns out that he is massively linked to the key parts of everything I'm talking about. In fact, my family's link very quickly with David Icke as well, and he links with a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So,
can I ask you something? Do you not feel like that's the sort of information that could be weaponized against you to isolate and segregate yourself? Because to me, that to me, I would be, if I was the evil genius in charge, I would know you're smart enough to figure out, the elitists' fake plans. I think you're too well versed in spotting what it is you're spotting. And I feel like they would weaponize anyone else that you could get on your side against you and isolate you from your family. That would be how I would weaponize false information against you if I was the evildoer, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'd want you thinking everyone else that you previously listened to was mad and on the payroll. Instantly, that would be the number one thing for me. So do you ever get that sort of impression? And I know you're going to say, well, the evidence points to the other, but it must drive you mad wondering just how much of a blockade they've put in your information getting out by the possibility of them alienating other voices that could have been, allied with you, if that makes sense.
Well, first of all, the evidence is there, which everyone can verify, but also the reactions of my family support their involvement.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so for whatever reason, I can't explain why that's the case, but it's there in black and white. It can be verified. People can check and see the connections. So you've got, not only have you got the connection to the main Freemason lodge, you've got a connection to a Knights Templar building through the company's house records. This isn't, this isn't something that's somebody's just told me about. This is actually verifiable evidence that people can check and see through the government's own registration system. So I've got to keep, although yes, my mind's been blown, and I'm trying to find out, well, why are there all of these connections, and why is this all around me? If it's there and other people are verifying it, then obviously it can't undermine me, and also there's got to be a reason for it. But I don't know what that reason is.
Can I hit you with a mind blower just for a minute?
Yeah,
right?
go for it.
Do you think it's possible that with the CERN technology, the powers that be have the ability to take glimpses into future outcomes, other dimensional realities where perhaps they've seen an outcome where if they don't derail someone like you, they've seen an outcome that could possibly happen. They've seen an outcome if they martyr you. They've seen outcomes in all of this. And they're playing the game with you that projects an outcome in a distant future that best suits them, because we're really getting to the weird and wacky here. But it would explain why people feel like they're preordained or have been picked or chosen by a higher power. Maybe it's not so much a higher power, it's just the evildoers have had foresight into what you could bring to the world if you're not controlled, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I know that's out there, Gary. I know that's out there, mate. But
no, it's good. It's good to talk about, all options in this. I mean, I can only speculate what they're able to do scientifically. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know what they're able to do with their technology. I'm very open-minded, of course. Now I have to be with what I'm finding, because as I've said to you, every day I'm being blown away with what I'm finding. And I'll tell you something that's probably quite important in all of this in a minute, which I've been broadcasting. So in answer to your question, it's blowing my mind every day. Is it possible they have technology that they can somehow, interdimensionally find out what's going on and use that as their narrative or whatever? Absolutely. But then you've got to come back to, well, what I'm doing is putting faces to crimes against children and publicizing them in the document, so they're exposing themselves by what they're giving me, if that makes sense, by that evidence.
But we have to assume what they are hiding is so much more dangerous than, they're going to find out what we're doing with the kids. We'll distract them with the kids, which is horrific to think that they would hang their own, like, for example, if you're an evil PDF file, the last thing you would think is that your evil PDF file mates are going to hang you out to dry for being an evil PDF file. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
Oh, dude.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? It's just mind-blowing. I mean,
honestly, Gary, I'm not being funny. Until you brought up CERN, I was okay. I was okay. Everything was okay until you were like, and the fact that you're talking about chats about CERN in 1991. What?
I forgot to mention what's really important about 1991 is also it was 1992 when the Companies House register started to become electronic. Okay, and that's how they've been doing the forgery. So they're forging the electronic register. So that was timed. It looks like that was actually timed with the collider.
Wait. Gary, does that not mean then if we have digital ID cards, they can do the same scam with people that don't exist? By just saying, here's Stevie, here's Jimmy McLeish. Jimmy McLeish in Scotland, he earns 90k a year. Let's just rattle 100,000 fake people's earnings through the same scam.
Yeah. It's pretty mind-blowing.
I'm not playing anymore, Gary. I'm not playing anymore. Okay, this was all fun and games exposing the government until you brought up CERN, and now I'm seeing what the digital. This is part of the big scam. It's the new Companies House. This is the new Companies House scam. It's just going to be millions of fake people. Oh God.
Well, the digital ID is definitely going to be part of this. The initial research has already connected it to Tony Blair's son, Ewan Blair, and it's looking as though it's going to be linking into the same companies that I'm exposing. But this is a very interesting point about CERN, seeing we're on the subject, and it'd be interesting to have your view on what this means. So about 6 or 7 years ago, there was an interview by God TV with a guy called Anthony Patch. And they were talking about CERN and saying that it may be being used to open a portal to allow some sort of entity to come to Earth. Anyway, somebody sent me that video, and I obviously watched it, and I researched God TV straight away through the Company's House records, goes straight to the company I was removed from, Export Manor. Criminal, fraudulent companies. Okay? Hear me out. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. Anthony Patch, also, the person being interviewed, also linked to Export Manor via the research, but not as quickly. It was within like 2 companies. On the incorporation document, there was an address involved. When you went in from another company, there was the link to Export Manor again. Now, what that means is that those 2 people were positioned by those behind the centralized government fraud to tell the world that CERN was going to be creating a portal potentially to come through. However, the most interesting bit about that, Ron, is within the comments. I happened to look at the comments in the video, and it said that CERN had apparently tried to open a portal on the 5th of July 2022. Now, this is going to be very important for the reasons I'm going to tell you. So 5th of July 2022. I went onto the CERN website, and it confirmed it on the website that they had conducted a very important experiment at CERN on that date, the 5th of July 2022, and it was in fact the first. Pardon?
That's right after lockdown, right?
Like not long. Yeah.
Interesting you say that, Gary. Carry on. We'll circle back. Carry on.
So I checked, and this experiment they conducted was the first experiment they'd conducted in 3 years. Well, if you go back 3 years, that's when the COVID outbreak was. Okay, in December 2019. Okay, but if you go back, remember that was July 2022. If you go back exactly 3 years, July 2019 is when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. It's also when Julian Assange was arrested, which links to Export Manor. They both connect to Export Manor and the exact same companies in the fraud. Okay, it was that same month that there was a protest in Wuhan about an incinerator plant being built in Wuhan, and it was the month after that, in August 2019, that cell towers were erected in Wuhan, and when Jeffrey Epstein supposedly died in prison. Okay, so anyway, just going back to that experiment. So we know they did conduct an experiment on that date that someone claimed CERN might be trying to open a portal, and it was the first time in 3 years. The day afterwards is when the Georgia Guidestones were damaged and removed. If your listeners aren't aware of what the Georgia Guidestones are, they were granite stones that were erected in America in 1980. Okay, and they were represented an upcoming man-made apocalyptic event, and they were supposedly able to withstand a nuclear explosion. And on those stones, it had that the population needs to be kept below 500 million. Okay,
I just want to say, if you don't know about the Georgia Guidestones, that is a good one for you to remember to get delving into.
Definitely.
Gary, finish your point, because I'm going to circle back, because I've got a whole bunch of research that ties in with your research that's going to just ruin everyone's evening. So please carry on.
Yeah, so they were damaged on the day after CERN conducted that experiment, okay, on the 6th of July. And I'd already researched the Georgia Guidestones and connected them to Export Manor, the company I was removed from, via the research of its designer, who is called Christian Roberts, I believe the name is. You can check that if you want. So it was 2 days after that I approached the acting chairman of Export Manor, which triggered this whole investigation and exposure. So you had 5th of July, CERN experiment, 6th of July 2022, those stones were destroyed and removed. 2 days later is when my whole investigation was triggered. So what we have to consider is, did something happen at CERN that changed their plans to destroy those stones? Or they set that up to make people believe that it was connected to everything that I'm linking in this fraud. That's the one thing we have to consider. So yeah, it's quite mind-blowing.
Well, listen, right? We're gonna put an occultist twist on this now, right? Because lockdown, as soon as lockdown ended, right, we seen a wave of bizarre music concerts, right? A lot of bizarre events taking place at music concerts, subliminal messages, crowds looking like they've been blown over. It was very it was almost as if you were forced into not being able to worship an unknown deity for a period of time, and everyone went into mass panic. And it was almost like I felt like it was we're making up for lost time with our evil deeds here. So when you said they hadn't started it up in 3 years, I wonder just how much of an occultist reason for this portal to be opening and all these things to have happened through it, because it is so convenient that when we bring up magic and the occult, we're so programmed because of the three big religions programming us to reject all of this. I think it has so much more of a relevance in all of this than we'll ever want to believe. And I think its simplisticness is its genius, because magic and portals, what are you talking about? But let's think about this, Gary. When we watch, say, a fictional movie about Merlin and all the rest of it, and you've got two wizards who are talking through a portal, how is that any different than what we're doing right now, Gary? I know we understand it as technology, right? But I mean, I'm sitting in front of a magical screen here, and I'm talking to a man in a field, right? that has an element of magical amazement to it. I can't tell you how it works. It could be elves and pixies just randomly drawing me and Gary and holding it up to the screen. I'm not sure the technology. But when we give ourselves into a world where magic doesn't exist, then we disarm ourselves from how to protect ourselves from what can happen through a screen, mass worship of celebrities, all of this thing. And I think there's a lot more weaponization of us being isolated in front of a screen than we could ever actually understand at this point. Symbols, magical sigils, all of these things that are lost to us are so prevalent. And I'll be honest with you, Gary, I'm not going to sleep tonight, because it was kind of fun when I didn't really fully grasp everything you were saying. But sadly, it's all fallen into place tonight. I get it now. Like this ID situation, it's just going to be the exact same laundering scam. It's going to be the same thing, Gary. And anyone that wants to speak out about it will be switched off. It's the next level, because they made a mistake by leaving Company House so wide open that the Garys of the world could find stuff out. But my God, the minute that Gary's got an ID card that they can just go terrorist, you're done, mate. You're done. How do you explain that to the woman in the co-op? Do you know what I'm saying? How do you explain that? How do you explain that? How do you explain? Listen, just ignore the terrorist banner. Listen, the fact that when I open my ID, it goes whoop, 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 and flashes. Ignore that. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. Oh man, I'm back.
I mean, if you want to, it depends how big you want the conversation to go here. But this all links into the Balfour Declaration and into Israel as well. And I can just cover a little bit of that with you, just because it does relate to what I'm talking about. So in 1917, you had the Balfour Declaration, which involved the Rothschilds, and that fermented Israel as it is today. Okay, the Rothschilds are right the way through the Company's House fraud. All right, they're really, really key to this. In 1947, several key things happened. Okay, you had the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom was formed. So that was in 1947. In 1947, the United Nations signed the petition that led to the Israel-Arab War in 1948. But very, very importantly, in 1947, also, it was when the doomsday clock started. Okay, you know, the visual representation of the clock.
Yeah.
Okay, which is almost the same as the Georgia Guidestones in terms of they represented.
Honestly, makes no sense. Their whole we're 2 seconds away. Like, what are you talking about? You literally, in the time you've explained this to me, it took you 30 seconds. That's longer than 2 seconds. I don't even. It was the worst, man. Just use colors. Okay, being like, oh, it's almost red, and when it gets to red, we're done. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. It's a stupid one. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So So 1947, well, I'm just going to throw this out there because it does become relevant to what I'm finding with the cell towers. 1947 is also when microwave ovens became commercially available in people's properties and homes. All right. So that allowed the ability to put radiation in people's homes. That's a whole other subject, the cell towers, but that ties in with the cell towers. So you've got this happened in 1947, all of these things, doomsday clock, chief police officers. It's around the same time that the National Health Service was created, and also the Tavistock Institute, which is a mind control program that was actually integrated into the NHS. A lot of people don't realise that. 1946, the year before, is when UNICEF was created, which is the United Nations element of protecting children worldwide, particularly in relation to conflicts. So it's appearing as though that was actually an inversion, and it wasn't about protecting the children at all. It was probably, according to all of the research, about how to take children from international conflicts. Okay. That then gives the motive for the conflict element in this, as well as the laundering of the money through defence contracts. The conflicts allows the ability to take children from those conflicts into the crimes against children as well. So remember, you got the doomsday clock. If we then come back to 2012, obviously you had this experiment and they discovered the Higgs boson, a God particle. You had this meeting, according to the research, with Jeffrey Epstein, Stephen Hawking. Now, Stephen Hawking, just going back a little bit, I'll mention this quickly. Stephen Hawking first came out with the theory of, it was called Hawking radiation, where he claimed that black holes emitted a certain type of radiation. Now, he came out with that in 1971. Why is that important? Well, 1971 is the same year that the World Economic Forum started. Okay, now bearing in mind we're getting all of this evidence tying in with the collider technology, we have to consider, with the evidence and what's happened, that the World Economic Forum was set up deliberately to launder world's money into the collider technology. Okay, now Stephen Hawking was studying black holes and the point of event horizon, etc. So 2012, not only did all of that happen and was at the end of the Mayan calendar, but it's also when the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners was started. Okay, now bearing in mind I've just told you about the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom, same year as the Doomsday Clock. Okay, 1947.
Kind of throw something in here, because another thing that Stephen Hawking was about was string theory, right? Was that there was 7 alternate realities. That was his concept, right? Was string theory. And let's just say he probably knows better than us on the subject. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that he was right and there's 7 other realities. Okay. That would make the whole CERN operation even more suspicious and viable, because the black holes being created on Earth, because I do believe that recently we've seen something come back out of a black hole. I think that is something that's never been recorded before. There was something, Google it, this is the ADHD version of the facts here. There was something that got sucked into a black hole that scientists have now seen come out of the black hole. Google it, right? Because you have to wonder, with the black hole, is it more of a wormhole? Because we don't really know enough about it. I mean, I know they're completely insane pieces of science that are in space that just suck in everything. But if that was controlled, Gary, right? If, for example, it was less like a hole in the side of a paddling pool with just this constant, suction out, just to suck all mass in. If there was a way of peeking into there safely, could we not argue that the God particle, string theory, and CERN points towards some sort of conspiracy that would be fact? Because the only thing I can figure out when it comes to the evil overlords is it's money, power, and control, right? So if there's only 7 realities, that's a hell of a lot easier to manage than endless alternate dimensions. Okay, and if we go with what Stephen Hawking said, pretty smart guy when it comes to this, let's assume he was right. We have to wonder if that means we can peer into a reality, or we can overlap with a reality, or we can become a reality, or if we mess around with this, things get muddled up and mixed together a little bit. Because I've seen oddities in the world that don't make sense since CERN came into power. And this is from the dumbest level of understanding of it all. The Mandela effects, all of these things that are just people write them off as mass delusion or mass misremembering. There's a scientific word for it. But really, this is the level of cover-up that we're looking at. I mean, what other cover-up would you be willing to throw people to the wolves over the abuse of children when the reality's worse and scarier than what's happening to the children? Like, because we've already seen the evil that takes place here. So what is the real agenda? Is it having an escape route if the world ever collapsed? Is it we've found a reality where we've not destroyed the earth that these evildoers can go and get their teeth into and reset their own legacy? I don't know, but that to me is the size of what we're dealing with, because that's the level of cover-up, Gary, right? I mean, I know it sounds out there, but that's what it feels like to me. You don't have to agree with me, but the level of that, I'm sure you can agree with whatever other outcome it is, but it just feels like we are so in the dark right now, mate. It really does.
We are. I mean, the evidence, when you look at everything I'm telling you, particularly the fact that you've got David Icke coming out and saying what he said, what it looks like is that they're funneling all of this money to try and use technology to create a falsified biblical prophetic event on earth, and potentially even a tribulation period. That's what we have. That's what it looks like with all of the evidence I've got. Or they want us to believe that that's what they're trying to do through this evidence. All right. So one of those two things. But it's pretty overwhelming, to be honest with you. You know, you've got the fact that David came out and he said world will be devastated by earthquakes, tsunamis. Then you have the climate technology. Then you have Jeffrey Epstein linking in with CERN scientists, etc. Everything that happened in 2012. The police and crime commissioners were set up that year. They link almost immediately to Jimmy Savile via the Companies House research. So then you've got the connection to Jimmy Savile, and I think we can all agree, for whatever reason, he's very important to what's going on at the moment, and they're
honestly, it seems to me the more we look into everything, the only person I know that I didn't have connections with Jimmy Savile's me at this stage, because he's so underestimated with the power and what he was created to facilitate. You know, I mean, the reality we know about is horrific enough, but I mean, that's the reality that we were allowed to see. That was the lesser end of the scale, you know. And
yeah, I absolutely think that they're using the cover of the children, the sexual abuse of the children, to cover something much, much bigger. And I think that's why the Jeffrey Epstein list isn't being released, because I think as my evidence is being released, they're going to know that it's going to connect to something much bigger. And that is, which is much bigger, appears to be what I'm talking about, the falsified prophecies, and how the actual, not only the abuse of children, but how the unaliving of children actually relate to that technology. So you had the police and crime commissioners were brought in. If you don't know what they are, they were heads of corporate organizations that were brought in to work alongside the chief constables for every police force in the United Kingdom. And they actually controlled the funding of the money in relation to the police and oversaw the police. So this immediately gave them the ability to control the funding through the police forces via the police and crime commissioners. Now, that came out in 2012. As I've said, they were founded in 2012. After, it looks like they failed to achieve what they wanted on the 4th of July 2012. Remember, you had the meeting with Stephen Hawkins, Jeffrey Epstein, 19th of April 2012. Less than 3 months later, on the 4th of July, CERN discovered the Higgs boson of God particle. It looks like they failed to do what they might have wanted, needed more money, so set up the police and crime commissioners to be able to funnel more money in from the legal system through the enforcement, for example, of traffic offences, cameras, ANPR cameras, ULEZ cameras, etc., and funnel that back into the agenda. And as you've already rightly pointed out, they're obviously wanting to build a larger Hadron Collider for whatever reason. Okay, so it's looking as though, if I had to have a stab in the dark here, they're trying to bring about falsified biblical prophecies and potentially trying to bring back the Creator to Earth as the ultimate conclusion in this. And
trying to bring back Sutton, Gary. I think they're definitely trying to bring Sutton forward. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, when Gary talks about falsified biblical events, just imagine if every country in the world, whatever their national religion is, suddenly that deity appears in the sky, right? Like something to that level of mass control is really what we're trying to get at. And there was rumors that the cloud seeding and the chemtrails had something to do with injecting our atmosphere with a way of projecting something up there. It was boron and aluminum. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. But Gary, right? What if when it comes to the children, what if there's something more to the God particle? What if there's something more to what is needed?
I've got a theory with the children side of things. I'm not saying this is right, but you know, like,
let me just throw up the allegedly banner. Hang on, there we go. Now we're safe. Now we're safe. Now we can go.
Yeah. So you know, most people, even if they don't believe in a creator, as they suffer in their life, whether it be they're leading up to their death, they're on the deathbed, a lot of people will turn to whether it's prayer. You know, they'll try and contact the creator.
They crap themselves. They crap themselves, Gary, and they're like, "Oh my god, I need to pick a team. I need to pick a team right now."
Yeah. So in theory, let's just say, do these people believe that through the suffering of the children, they believe they can bring about the creator here to earth, and that they maybe have been doing that for many, many centuries, thinking they can bring back the creator through that suffering? Let's face it, that's the ultimate suffering, the ultimate evil, isn't it? If they're doing all things to the children. But now they've got this technology, they've been trying to do it through that technology, and they've actually managed to potentially achieve something on the 5th of July 2022, bearing in mind what we've spoken about earlier. I mean, everything we're talking about, let's face it, a lot of it is speculation, a lot of it is theorizing. On a
Gary, what if? Because we've got to remember how many kids go missing. It's an astronomical amount of kids, right? Now, maybe it's the self-medicating, right? But what if there's something to the current that runs through us as a human? Like, we've got this electrical current that runs through us, this little frequency, right? Well, what if there's some mad science where when you put a bunch of little kids together and fire a massive current through them, that creates a God particle that, you know, because this has all got to tie in somewhere. And I just feel like, could you imagine if all of this evil comes from children being sacrificed one at a time, and now you have a technology where tens of thousands can be sacrificed instantaneously, whilst creating this God particle, whilst wanting control over the world? That would account for the missing. That would make sense with the amount of kids that are missing. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying Gary has ruined my brain this evening, and that's where I'm at. Because it would make sense, right? Because if we're talking about a big nasty donut of evil, and also we've got to stop saying it's satanic rituals, okay? It's so much older than it's a good way for you to understand it all. But trust me, this is so much older than the New Kids on the Block. The 2,000 years of history ain't nothing on the bloodlines. And yeah, man, I mean, could you imagine? Because when we look at the Matrix and all the people in the pods, right? Yes, we're talking about the movie now. And they talk about that. Oh God, Gary. Oh no.
It's just there's so much to think about.
First of all, we're not done yet this evening, but what are you doing tomorrow night? Have you got any plans for tomorrow night?
I'm doing another interview tomorrow, but I can definitely do another one soon.
Because I'm not going to sleep.
You want to hear about my arrest, don't you? Want to hear about why I was arrested?
Oh, Gary, I'll be honest with you, mate. At the start of this, I had a whole list of things that we're going to talk about, and then you mentioned Stern, and now it's over, bro. It's over. So we got to let the ADHD needs to calm down, and then we're going to cover your arrest, bro. You can't just pivot that quickly. We just can't. I just want to say to everybody else, I'm going to do a call-in show after the show with Gary this evening. It's called The Viewer's Voice. It's your news. It's your topics. Because I need to decompress after this already. I think a lot of us are going to need to decompress after this. So let's just wrap up the CERN thing, and then we'll move. How can we just wrap up the CERN thing? So, okay. So what I've learned from you tonight, Gary, is the money laundering scam through the company's house. That now makes perfect sense to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Sadly, it's now made me realize that that's what the digital ID scam is going to be. Okay. Because I'm not being funny. CERN's not a cheap project. Okay, the tiny CERNs that are massive was not a cheap project. The new one is not a cheap. Like, we're struggling with electricity bills. Someone has to pay for this, regardless of which way you look at it. When they turn on CERN, someone, it's not like an illegal grow, right, where you're siphoning off some electricity. This is a madness, and this justifies the hundreds of millions. It justifies the madness of invading other countries and destroying countries for their resources. Makes perfect sense now. The tens of thousands of children that go missing that just cannot all just be PDFs. Okay, some majority sure, but it just can't all be. So, this is a horror. This is a horror movie.
I forgot to mention. So this is quite important actually. So when I was talking about the evidence of the falsified biblical prophetic events, a lady called Catherine Fitz came out. She used to work for the Bush administration, obviously at the White House, and this was this year. She came out and said that she's aware that 21 trillion US dollars have been funneled through into a doomsday tunnel system. Now I knew straight away.
Tunnel system.
That's what she said. She, via the company that she used to work for, guess what? Linked straight to Export Manor Freehold Limited. Okay. Now, what this tells us is that was a deception to make us believe there was some sort of natural apocalyptic event potentially to hide where that money is really going, I suspect. But they practically admitted $21 trillion defrauded from the masses, and it will be linked into the company's house fraud that I'm exposing.
You know, we hear words like trillion and billion, right? Like, let me put this in perspective for people. If you take £1 million and you turn every pound into a second, right? That's about 33 days worth of time, right? In seconds. 1 billion is 11 years. Okay? Just to show you the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. And then there's a trillion. Okay? So when we talk about billions, it sounds a lot like million. It sounds like, it's a couple of trillion. That's a fun word. It sounds like million. It's mad how much money that is. Okay? Like 23 trillion is what I imagine turning on CERN costs. All right? Just to be clear. Just to go, is what I think it costs. All right? Because either that or they've got some big ass hamsters on some big ass wheels. Which, by the way, I'm not going to rule out. I'm not going to rule out bear-sized hamsters on a wheel. It could be. It could be. 23 billion or trillion, whatever it doesn't matter, whichever stupid
21,
number. Right?
21 trillion.
21 trillion!
That's what they told us about. That's only what they told us about. It'll be vastly more than that. Vastly more than that.
No one should have 21 trillion. And there shouldn't be 21 trillion lying about to get lost. It shouldn't just be like, Gary, where'd you put that? Do you know how much? Do you know what that would look like on pallets, Gary? Like if we got 21 trillion in £100 notes on pallets, how many pallets do you think that is? I'm thinking all of them, Gary. That's how many pallets, all of them. It's mad. It's mad that we've been conditioned with numbers. It's mad to think that being told, a trillion this, 1 billion that. We're so deluded into what that really means. We really, really are. And sorry, Gary, I know I've ADHD'd you again. Just circle us back.
It's good, you know. I mean, it's obvious that as I'm releasing evidence, they're releasing information as well about what they've been up to. It's as if they're being compelled or feel as though they're going to have to start exposing more of what they've been up to for whatever reason as this exposure happens, because it is, you know, it's so obvious and it's so verifiable by everybody to corroborate it that they know they're in serious trouble. They know it's coming to an end in terms of whatever they've been doing. So we're at an absolutely mind-blowing time to live at the moment. It's just amazing, really, what we're going through. And what I would say is nobody needs to be scared about any of this. Nobody needs to feel anxiety. There's obviously a reason it's all coming out. And I think as long as people are on the right side of this in terms of, fighting for the innocent and doing what's right for the children, the most innocent of all, then you've got nothing to worry about.
Listen, do you know what, right? This is one of those conversations where I wish I could just go and buy some ignorance and just forget about all this and just worry about, like my holiday this year or something. Because Gary, right? See what you just said there about they're exposing themselves, that we're seeing the realities, all the rest of it, right? What is more triggering than child transportation and child abuse? There's nothing, right? They've weaponized that as well. They've weaponized that. They're like, oh, Man on the Island, atrocities, R. Kelly, atrocities, Diddy, all of this. The weaponization of shock factor has to be prevalent in this too, because the minute that you think about that subject, your brain doesn't need to go any further because it doesn't interpret that there can be anything worse that is getting covered up. Oh man!
I noticed you put a picture, I think, of Keir Starmer on your banner for tonight, on your poster.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Trust me, I'll be better prepared for the next one, mate. Trust me.
No. It's good that you did, because it's interesting, because not long before I was put in prison, I was exposing the connection to Keir Starmer. And whilst I was in prison, I'll tell you a bit more about this when we go into the thing. But there was a guy in the cell who is, his wife's family is related to Keir Starmer, and he was shouting about a dispute going on with Keir Starmer at the time from the prison cell. Now, that was no coincidence. No coincidence.
Let's get into it, Gary, right? Now, let's just be honest. For whatever reason, you've discovered that basically, for whatever reason, you're a piece in a grand puzzle. There's family connections. There's a reason why you're in a tent. There's all this stuff. So tell us about the arrest, what happened, how it all came about. Because Starmer, you're not going to find any fans here of Starmer, I'll tell you that right now.
So go back a few months, and because of the connections to my family and also my wife's family, it was clear to me that they were looking to potentially steal my assets from me. Okay, I've got a property that I own because my father passed away, and I managed to rent that out. And I also own half of another property with my wife/ex-wife. And this led to what I believe was a fake non-molestation order being created, with what I suspect was a forged signature on a statement leading to a non-molestation order to stop me having contact with my wife. Okay, so this meant I couldn't liaise with my wife about our joint property and what was happening with my assets and my joint assets. Okay, so this all happened, and then I found connections to the police officer that was involved, link to the same surname, at least, in a company going back to the intelligence agencies. There was also a solicitor that was being used in a divorce settlement that I found immediate connections back into the key, not only the key companies, but the key names on the incorporation documents for the fraud, like really important connections. So anyway, it started to become apparent that this was a collaborative, staged effort to potentially set me up for something. Another group of people who I found out had been infiltrated had threatened to steal my motorhome and my car from me when I started, my motorhome and my property at Exbourne Manor, when I started exposing their connections to the fraud. So this happened. Then there was a collaborator. There is a reason I'm telling you this, because it leads up to my arrest.
You're good, mate.
Then there was an effort to remove a registered keeper from my motorhome, which should not even be possible. So I was lied to, said that the motorhome was put in my name, but they actually removed any name. This then causes an issue, doesn't it? If there's no registered keeper, how do I prove it's mine? Okay, now that shouldn't even be possible with the DVLA. So the DVLA were in on it. So anyway,
it's digitized, mate. You're staring in the face of the problem right here. It's someone just clicked a button, bro. Yeah. Someone literally, it's the same guys that are watching you on the screen right now on the satellite. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was those guys, and they're laughing right now. They're like, "Yep, it was us." I know it was you. Okay, and I it's true, because that's all it takes, Gary. And the minute that there's no paperwork, the minute that it's not, okay, we need to go down to the filing room on the 12th basement level and change Gary's this and that, the minute that they can just click on something, it's not even wow, hacked everything. It's the opposite of hacking. It's just the people that own everything are pushing the buttons. This is what frustrates me, Gary, because see, all of the things that are control tactics are brilliant ideas. It's just the people that run the world that make it terrible. Like, I would love a microchip in my head that, you know, makes me think faster and live longer and all this stuff. But do I trust that they're not going to put a tiny hand grenade in there? No, Gary, I do not. So that's the problem. You know, that's the problem, because I'm sure on paper, digital IDs is great. And in a world where we trust the government and they're not an evil organization that seem to be using children as batteries to open up dimensional portals into third dimensions, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but it could be. That's the reason, you know, and the people are waking up to this. So you've had everything thrown at you. Someone's put a 0 in the place of a 1 in one of your files. You are now no longer owning your properties and owning your vehicles. Like, that must have been a wake-up call on top of yet plenty more wake-up calls. I mean, where do you go from there?
Yeah, it is. But, you know, I'm willing to lose everything for this. You know, I wouldn't be in a tent if I wasn't, you know, I'm still going. They're not going to stop me, because my moral conscience tells me I have to be willing to risk everything for the children. So, you know, and that's what I have to do, is to keep going. But it's interesting, you've got Keir Starmer there. So he was obviously we've already mentioned Jimmy Savile earlier. All right.
One of Savile's friends, mate. He shut down the investigation.
Yeah. He was the director of public prosecutions for it. Now, his company, the company that he was a director for, Keir Starmer, is a criminal organisation. It's not even a legal company, called the Death Penalty Project Limited.
The Death Penalty Project Limited. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not being funny, but if companies like this are part of the grand fraud thing you're talking about, like, someone lost a bet and had to name their fraud company that is a elitist lost a bet name, because
absolutely
no one's calling. Could you imagine if that was the name of Asda? No one's going there. No one's going there, mate. It's true, Gary. It's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Listen, some people are asking, can we fund Gary? I'm not being funny. I'm now a big advocate for Gary, now that he's ruined reality for me in a way that I can understand. Last time, it was like, it was, imagine just like Gary trying to explain this to a 7-year-old, right? That's what it was the last time I met up with Gary. It's not my fault. Gary is a lot of information. So what we need to do is, I personally choose to believe that Gary is in a tent right now, but he's going to unzip the tent after the live stream, and he's in like some sort of like military like some sort of militia camp, right? Where it's like Camp Gary, and he's got like a nice big frickin' like TP, and all his people are there, and there's crossbows and all that. It's sadly not. So there's a lot of stuff that we could be getting for Gary.
I honestly don't need anything. I'm fine for money.
We need to get you equipment.
I'm choosing to do this.
Gary, you're missing the point here. I fully endorse your tent life, right? But there's like inflatable mattresses at like £400 that are incredible, that people sleep on icebergs with, that we could be getting you, that'll make your life more comfortable. I'm not trying to get you back in a house, mate. I'm just saying a big Agnes sleep system will change your life. Just Google them. They're incredible. It will change your life. So
I'm okay, honestly, but thank you very much for. I mean, I've had some incredible offers. People offering me to stay in home. I'm not listening. You know, I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful. But I'm okay, and I'm going to explain why I've got to do this at the moment and how it came about. So I'll skip to the main bit.
Sure.
So I found out that the DVLA, the Driver Vehicle Licensing Agency, was linked to the fraud. Okay, and I made various inquiries with the DVLA and the Transport Department, and they both refused to tell me who the real company was that they were now using for the DVLA register. Point blank refusing. Okay. Now, I'd already connected electronic data systems, the one they were using previously, to the same companies in the fraud. Okay. So, of course, I was along the lines of, well, how can we give our details to the DVLA if we're not even being told what that company is. That's like you going and handing your private information to a stranger on the street. And of course, the police would advise against you doing that. And yet here we are, the police are using an organisation that they're refusing, and the DVLA are using an organisation they're refusing to actually tell us. So this triggered me to get worried. And the only reason I looked into it was because of what I just told you about. I then found out that all insurance companies are centralised to the fraud. Okay, so I made all of these inquiries. I put police reports into the Metropolitan Police, said, look, nobody can pay into this system now. Nobody can actually insure their vehicle genuinely if you're not telling them who the company is. And it's linked to fraud that links to the laundering of money in relation to international conflicts, terrorism, crimes against children. I'm not going to pay into it. I've never hit anybody in my car in my life. I've never hurt anybody in my car. I'm not paying towards the suffering of children. So I basically said, right, I'm going to protest. And I did not comply to the Road Traffic Act with the MOT and those details, knowing full well it may create a problem for them if they stop me. Okay. Come back then to the 19th of September. So I was parked up not far from Inverness. This was exactly a week after I had tried to take part in my strategy to stop this whole fraud, which is a case of going into solicitors, accountants, financial advisors, publicly exposing them in videos, being linked to the centralized criminal network of fraud, and giving them 24 hours notice to shut their business or face arrest by the people. All legal, all peaceful, a strategy that we can use. So I went in and did that on the 12th. A week later, I was stopped by the police, knew where it was going to go. So I decided to record on my TikTok account as the incident was happening. I cautioned the police officers straight away because they were starting to ask questions. Eventually, it came to me giving my details, and I basically said, well, I'm not going to comply with the criminal system. You're going to have to arrest me, sort of thing. So they end up arresting me, okay, for not providing my details. They then, this is the video. They then seized, I actually told all 3 police officers that I was arresting them. Okay, because I'm that confident of the evidence. Yeah. All on the video.
Is that in the video? Is that at the start of the video? I need to hear that. That is just because this guy here is not ready. He is not ready to be arresting Gary. This guy right here, right? He is not ready. He has not had the appropriate training to deal with the information that he's about to be slapped with. I know. I was on a podcast with Gary previously. I know the weaponization of this man's information. This guy is not ready.
I'll just find out. I'll just get some calls.
Because you're part of the organised criminal system. I've got the evidence, so I can hand it to you right now.
Oh, already, this guy is clocked out, bro. He's gone, oh, God, no. Because I can guarantee you, right, although a lot of the police are corrupt as hell, there's so many of them that are just normal people that get sent to do their job, and this guy ain't prepared.
Now, everyone watching this, just to let you know, I've been stopped by the police. I've explained the situation. Criminal organisation. All of the insurance companies are centralised to this criminal system, and you cannot pay.
No, that guy is not ready for that.
Into a system where it is deliberately facilitating international
conflict. He's on his radio right now going, listen, he's talking about insurance companies, right, and national fraud. Like, I'm not, can we get, we need to get, somebody else needs to come down here. That's what this guy is.
Terrorism.
Did more police turn up by any chance? Did more police?
Two more turn up and I arrest them as well.
Brilliant.
Crimes against children. Brilliant. So if this officer continues, then he will be arrested for aiding and abetting, and there won't be any violence. Look
at him. He's like, I'm sure I just heard him say he's going to arrest me. That is the look of confusion and despair right there, because he is like, oh God, this is a traffic violation. This guy thinks he's going to arrest me, Gary.
It's needed. So if he continues, then I will be using those words, and it will be a citizen's arrest.
He can't even make eye contact with you, Gary. He can't even make eye contact with you.
Under common law in Scottish law, which is a serious offence, which is conspiring to allow international crimes, conflict, and the crimes against children.
Is that right, Gary? Is that right? Just rattles it off me.
And that
anyway, we're not. I'm going to mute this now. You can carry on with your story because
it's a bit before this actually, which I've got a video of. The initial interaction is also recorded. But anyway, so I refused to give my details, knowing that it would trigger an arrest against me. I was in the police. I know that they can actually arrest for any offence. Okay, even littering. If you don't give your details, they have a power to arrest. So anyway, I got taken into custody, went to Inverness police station. They seized my motorhome, and they were going to give me bail within about 3 hours. And it felt completely off for me, okay, for the no insurance side of things. And I refused that bail. I said, look, I can't sign this because of what I'm uncovering. I have a strong feeling if I walk out that door, potentially something's been set up for something to happen to me, and I need to keep going. So they kept me in custody, and that gave me a bit more time to think. And I had to think strategically, how do I get my evidence through their legal system now? So I then repeatedly made comments to all of the staff that I had disabled a cell tower publicly. Okay, a mobile communication tower. I disabled one, hoping that would trigger an interview for me to then implement all of my evidence in relation to the largest fraud in through their legal system.
Okay, so give us your mindset on you telling them that you disabled a cell tower. Break that again. Imagine it's a 7-year-old again. So just break down the importance of that for me.
Yep. So I've, over the last 3.5 years, I've got about 40 referenced police reports in relation to the concerns from the cell towers, the crimes against children, the fraud, you know, all the things I'm uncovering, and they're completely ignoring them. Completely ignoring them. I'm not getting any response whatsoever. An email to 650 members of parliament, okay, on various occasions, nobody's responding. So I basically decided to use this opportunity of this stop to think, how can I get my evidence recorded through them in a way where they cannot ignore it anymore?
Okay, so you're trying to weaponize their weaponization of whatever bullshit that they pulled you in for against them. How can you get your work into official records? That's basically that's the dumbass boiled down version for Ron. I do apologize that we have to dumb it down for Ron, but that I need to understand this. So I started trying to get the sergeant's attention within the custody area and the jailers, okay, with the people that help the sergeants. And about 9 times I made comments over a 2.5-3 day period. You need to interview me because I disabled a cell tower, because I need to get my evidence into through your system about what I'm uncovering. Anyway, didn't do it. They didn't interview me. Okay, didn't interview me at all. I went to court on the Monday. They bailed me. Now, they bailed me. That means twice they offered me bail with a non-molestation order in place. Remember I told you about the non-molestation order? Yeah, okay? It's the name of it. Because what that means is you're not allowed to contact your family for whatever reason, right? But the name of it sounds like you are the biggest monster in the world, right? And that, again, by design. So please.
The reason that non-molestation order even came about was because the police were refusing to acknowledge any of my reports. I needed to get controversial in my evidence that I was releasing to the public. So I actually got quite, it was all true, but I became quite personal in a police report that I submitted and publicized that police report. This triggered the non-molestation order against me based on that information I'd released, with them saying that's confidential, private information. Gary shouldn't have been releasing it. Here's a non-molestation order to stop you then contacting this person. Okay, so that was it worked. My plan got that initial reaction from the police. And of course, I came on the back of that non-molestation order and said, okay, now you contacted me. I've got 40 referenced police reports that I've been submitting and you've been completely ignoring. Can you tell me what's happening with them? They completely ignored it again. Completely ignored it. The crimes against children, linking in with Keir Starmer, linking in with all of the evidence that I've got, the threat of directed energy from the cell towers, where the evidence is pretty overwhelming, ignored the whole lot. So anyway, they bailed me twice to the home address, gave me the opportunity to be bailed twice to the home address, knowing about the non-molestation order. So I was released on the Monday after for the traffic offences. No interview at all for the cell tower. Nothing at all. They then arrested me for the cell tower when I left. When I was being bailed, they then arrested me for the cell tower, put back into custody, went before the court, refused my bail then, even though they'd confirmed I could be bailed to my home address twice. They then refused the bail on that occasion And that then triggered me to go into prison. So I was then imprisoned. Well, overall, I was in there for 12 days. And when I went into prison, again, no interview at all for the cell tower. I still have not been interviewed at all. I haven't even had the opportunity to plead guilty or not guilty in relation to the cell tower side of things.
So, well, listen, I need to go and get a glass of water. Just pause what you're saying there for a second, Gary.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the sound back on this and make it full screen while I go and get a drink of, while I go and fill my glass. Because it sounds a lot like, because here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest with you. Why have they let you stay alive? That's the first thing. So now we've got to me, I think what they're going to try and do with someone like you is weaponize you as a patsy for how ridiculous somebody can allow information to control them. Does that make sense? Like, so, I don't even know what I'm saying, Gary, but
I'll tell you why I think I'm alive. Because
hang on, Gary, hold that thought. I'm going to go and get a glass of water. I'm going to put the sound back on this. I'll be less than 30 seconds, mate.
No worries.
You've got David Sidgwick, who is in Dorset. Okay, links directly into all of the fraud, linking in with Jimmy Savile. So you've got a chance to do the right thing here. I'm trying to help you, and I'm trying to help you. Need to side with the people. You can see the corruption all the time. You can see it every day. What's going on? Why do you think you had this rally with Tommy Robinson? To stir up the racial hatred between the ethnic minorities. Because the Albert Pike letter that was written in 1871 to Mazzini, I've got it, I can send it to you. Right? You're going to be caught up in all of this, and you're going to be victimised.
You're making him nervous, Gary. The red-headed copper is now, he's biting his nails, he's crapping himself. He's like, shit, is this guy right? Am I arrested right now? That's the look on his face. So, listen, I know it's a pretty bleak question, right? But we have to figure out why you've not just had a food poisoning in this incident. And I know that sounds pretty messed up.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. So when I went in prison, I knew the risks to me. All right. Bearing in mind what I'm uncovering links to Jeffrey Epstein, it links to Max Clifford.
Wait, no, finish the story about the arrest. You've not ended up in prison yet. Like, tell us conclude the arrest story, and then rather than me derail that, because people will get.
I think I did. So I think they arrested me for the cell tower. They then remanded me, refusing the address, even though they'd accepted it twice before. That meant I couldn't get an address. I tried to get another address from my phone, another number. I was not allowed to get another bail address. So that
means you cannot be bailed out, right? That means they keep you in prison. Because that's the exact same thing that's going on with our friend Julia right now. She's, it's wild. And that's a whole other story. And I'm waiting on a phone call, everyone. And then I'm going to be doing a show covering everything that's gone on with that, because we need an update. But that is where I learned about that. So they've weaponized that against you, and you've been refused bail. I mean, what was that like in prison, Gary? In jail, in prison, like which one it was?
Yeah. So I had to think tactically. What do I do? Because I'd found the connections to Max Clifford and Jeffrey Epstein, and of course they died in prison. So obviously I'm thinking, right, they're going to get rid of me in prison here somehow. They're going to end my life in prison. So I made it very hard for them. And one of the first things I did, I literally shouted to the entire prison continuously that I was a former police officer. I was investigating crimes, government crime, and crimes against children. And I tried to get the inmates to all side with me. Okay, so I did that for about half.
I'll be honest with you. Until you ended that with, I'm investigating crimes against children, you're just the maddest individual. But it makes sense, because the one thing that would get criminals on the side of a former policeman is somebody who's exposing that atrocity. Like, Gary, I mean, if you had an IQ test, I think you're like a secret genius here, because like,
well, it was the only thing I thought that would help protect me whilst I was in there.
That's some biblical stuff. Okay, normal people, Gary, do not end up on that conclusion. That is a download from whatever deity that is, whatever God it is you follow. That is 100%. There's no explanation for why they didn't just rip you apart in prison, Gary. Right? So,
So as a result of me doing that, they then put me in isolation. Okay, so I was in isolation at the back of the prison for about 4 days. I was only allowed out for less than an hour a day. So I shouted from my cell window as much as I could, or quite a lot. And this then enabled me contact with other prisoners again. So I had some conversation with the prisoners, said, look, I'm an ex-police, blah, 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 blah. I'm investigating all of this. I believe you're all here unlawfully. All right, because of this system of fraud. If there's fraud behind the prison service, that means every imprisonment is illegal. Okay, so I tried to get all the prisoners on board. Well, this is when I believe they had actors in place, I suspect, shall we say, around me in terms of a couple of the prisoners, because one of them started saying that he's related via his partner to Keir Starmer, and there's a big this big thing going on with Keir Starmer and him and his family, and Keir Starmer's trying to get him put away for years. And I'm thinking,
they want to hear you bitch about Starmer, right? They're trying to fish, right? That's what they're doing. They're trying to fish to see how much you're willing to talk on Starmer, right? Is that what you thought?
Well, I don't know what I knew. That I just thought they'd been positioned, and I even shouted to them, look, you're positioned here, aren't you? As in pretending to be a prisoner, shouting. I mean, one of them said yes. But he could have just
like, you've got to understand, we live in a world where a government spent 15 years hiding explosives in pagers. Okay, so the thought of Gary having 2 paid actors in the cells next to him is way more. I mean, you've got to understand how likely that is. He's been isolated, and now they're. Of course, it's going to be. Oh man, like.
Well, I've now found out from other people that have helped me that apparently my prison number isn't even a real prison number.
Of course, it's not a real prison number, Gary. Nothing about you is real. The only thing that's real about you is when you slap yourself in the face. That's it. Everything else has been deleted, mate. It's been deleted. And the guys watching you on the screen right now are pissing themselves. They're like, yep, that was Steve that deleted all that. Old Steve-O up in the 13th floor. Because, Gary, do you know, I use this metaphor a lot, right? Do you remember the movie Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson, right? Where he had, mate, you need tonight, use just whatever device you have for watching movies, you need to watch Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson. It was in the early 90s, and he had a theory about everything, Gary. He had a theory about everything, and then one day his theory was correct, and he ends up getting hooded and taken away and asked about all of this stuff, and he never really knows what he was right about. But that's your life, Gary, right? Because let's be honest here, the level of knowledge that you're putting forward, the amount, I mean, you know, we're all friends here, so you're not needing to like whip out 5,000 receipts, which you have, okay, just to be clear. Like, trust me, for people that are like new to Gary and they want receipts, I'll give you them, but you asked for it, okay? All right, you asked for it, all right? Because I would like to get all of this laid out. There needs to be a biography of all your work that is laid out, consumable, but without leaving anything out. And we can do all of that with voice notes, Gary, over WhatsApp. We can even trial one, putting one together. All you do is go voice note screenshots. I'll put them into a video, and then we're rolling. Do you see what I mean? Because Gary, if you were to just vanish tonight, where can we all find your information? Where can we find your work?
Well, most people have it. Most people all had it, all because I realised that it needed to all be put into a document. So that document
I get the document, Gary. Do you know how many normal people don't give a rat's ass about documents? They need the animated version of the document, Gary. Right? So we need that. We need that because people aren't going to believe a document. The world is wild, Gary, right? And we need to get this out there in every medium that people can consume, because that it has to happen. Because I'll tell you something else. You ever have fallen victim? You're at school and the teacher asks a question to the class. You don't understand it, but the minute they say it directly to you, they understand it for some reason. That happened to me a lot in school. Yeah. It's the same thing with how people digest information. So there's people out there that will not pick up a document, but they will passively listen to you while they're filling their time doing something else. doing the dishes, doing laundry, doing the gardening, whatever. If we can do that with your information, that's what we have to do. There's nothing else that I'm going to be bugging anyone about apart from that. Is all I'm focused on between now and Christmas, is bugging you and getting all of this laid out.
So I've got a TikTok channel where I'm trying to put some of the evidence on, and I'm doing a lot of live streams, and that's at Gary Time for Freedom 2025, and then another 5 at the end.
The problem is, Gary, right? Is that format is great for everyone that's under 28 years old. Okay, the demographic that we need to get to, they need it the other way around. You need to turn the camera this way, and it needs to be delivered in a way that they can relate to, because your TikTok is great, it's fantastic, but you're isolating yourself in what people will take as serious content when this needs to be done this way. And I'll tell you what, I'm happy to do all the editing work and send it to you to put on your own channel. I don't care where it goes. I just need to know that it's out there. So we need to do that 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So I've got the trouble is they suppress everything I'm doing, but you've got, for whatever reason, they're allowing my TikTok videos to go out there, and that is what seems to be gaining the traction.
Well, Barry, we keep doing the TikTok videos, okay? And if we build a YouTube channel and they take it down, I'll just build you a freaking website and put it all on the website, and then no one can take it down. The information has to be out there in 20-hour-long consumable episodes, so that everyone can get to fully understand all of this. It's great to understand little bits, but we need to do the other version, the long drawn out receipts version, because at some point, Gary, like, I'm worried that you're going to vanish, and I need to be able to continue the Gary rant when I'm sorry to be so like gloomy and down here, Gary, mate, but they are so going to push you through a portal into some hellish world where you've got it's going to be like Naked and Afraid, right, in another dimension, and there's going to be pterodactyls and stuff, man. That's where they're going to put you, bro. It's going to be I'm just saying, like, I love you a bit, Gary, but I've got to be honest, we need to secure the information. Like, it has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. It's too far circulated. But I've got a YouTube channel, Gary for Freedom. What else have I got? A Telegram channel, but a lot of them are suppressed.
Listen, whatever YouTube channel Gary's got, I'm going to bully Gary into making this happen, right? Because it has to happen. I'm not going to be able to sleep at night until it's done, Gary, okay? And we'll put it all on your channel. You can own it all. And it will also make it so that people can find all the episodes and download them and put them on their own channels, because the information has to spread digitally and not in a document for the majority of people. And we're not going to butt heads about that anymore. I'm going to bully you into it happening. That's now my new thing. So the arrests happened, right? You've basically got yourself isolated. They've targeted you with agent provocateurs. What happens next?
So I start getting told that they're going to be poisoning my food, they're going to be poisoning my water, and they might come and strangle me in the middle of the night in the prison. So right. I'm starting to be told that now by these people that have been positioned. Obviously, a test to me to see how I deal with it. Eventually, I get bail. So I managed to get an address. They bail me out, and they give me a travel warrant and say I have to leave the whole of Scotland within 48 hours. And they pay for my trip to Torquay in Devon or Cornwall, wherever it is. So I realise at this point, okay, they've got my motorhome. I can't go to my home address. They're shutting me down, but they want me in a location where it gives them the ability to potentially do something if they want. Bearing in mind, I haven't even been to court yet. They're not going to want me going to court. So I've decided.
Anything suspicious about the address you were bailed to? You don't have to say who it was, but with all of the connections to all of this, did you not think to yourself, why this address?
It was an address that I chose with somebody I knew.
Okay.
It was an address that I chose. It wasn't an address they chose. It wasn't an address.
If I'm Gary, I'm just assuming everyone I know now is a government plant, right? And I'd be like, so why have they accepted this guy's address? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's where my mind would...
Yeah, well, they didn't have the non-molestation order connection, did they, to the other address? So they didn't have that justification to refuse it again. Okay. So anyway, then I needed to think tactically and basically thought, okay, I have to protect this evidence at all cost. I have to, as in, I need to ensure that I keep going because it's too big. So I've made the decision to go into a tent, which means I can move around. I can stay solitude. I can stay safe. I'm comfortable enough. And it means I can keep doing what I'm doing until the court dates. I've got 2 court dates coming up in relation to the traffic offences, but nothing in relation to the bell tower. So now I'm building the evidence around the defence, preparing for how, because it's now opened a bit of a door for me, hasn't it? Because I can now.
I don't know, Gary. I don't know, mate. I'll be honest with you. I think what we need is we need to start GoFundMe for a lair. Gary needs a lair. Okay, he doesn't need a tent. He needs a lair. Okay, if anyone knows of any like bat cave like areas of the UK, that's what we need to get for Gary. Okay, a lair, a badass lair, because. I mean, can I just? We kind of just brushed over the whole. They're going to poison my food. So, how many days did you have to not eat anything for? Because I'll be honest with you, that must. No, have sucked.
I did eat. I had to think. Well, how do I deal with this information? They're ignoring all of my rights were being withheld. As in, I couldn't speak to a solicitor for ages. I couldn't even phone anyone else other than one contact. About 10 days in, was the first phone call I was able to make.
No shit, Gary.
So then I decided to go to see the nurse. After I find out about the poisoning of the food, told the nurse, look, I'm concerned because I've had these threats. I'm exposing government fraud. I was telling everyone, everywhere I was going, that I was based, who I was, sometimes shouting it wherever I was walking, all the way through the police station, in the prison, just to try and stay alive, basically, and to make it cause as much of a peaceful issue as could to be noticed. I
can't say too much, but it may or may not be the case that somebody in a similar position that you were in, who we may or may not have touched on earlier, may or may not have felt like her life was in danger because of something that may or may not have happened involving her food and her drink. So it's very common. Okay, for warnings, for little things to take place, because what better place for people to write off them happening than in a prison, Exactly. It's scary, Gary. Like, I'm not being funny. Like, you have clearly had one evening over the last 15 years where the trauma of everything that you've discovered has like armor plated your brain, where you're now. You must understand that they're deleting your records. They're taking away your vehicles. They're getting your assets. There's information that your family and friends are part of all of this. Like, there's no way. This is like the Charlie Kirk Snake Eyes movie comparison, except you have to ask yourself, without bringing in some weird, stern, preordained narrative, how does any of this make sense? Why you, Gary? Why would somebody like Gary have these people inserted into their life if there wasn't a preordained outcome that they're trying to prevent? And I'm telling you, what better way to convince everyone that you and me are mental than that being what it is? Because no one's buying that. It's taken years for people to accept that there was a global PDF syndicate, let alone child battery powered donut of hell. You know what I'm saying? Gary, I'm being serious, mate. I'm being serious because you're the only person that I know that talks about that. It's CERN, right? So you're the only guy I know that lives in a tent because of this. And we need to pay attention to that. Okay? We need to pay attention to that. All right?
I don't have all the answers to this.
You've got a lot of answers, Gary. You've got a lot of answers, mate. You've got like 90% of the answers. Sorry, I know I'm letting him talk. I'm sorry. Ron is. Listen, do you understand how difficult it is for Ron to be put in a state of fear? And my whole known reality has collapsed this evening. I'm sorry I keep talking. I can't help it. Okay? Like, this is a lot. It's a lot to take in.
I know what you've said about the document, but what the documents that you saw with me before were screenshots, which I had to do to secure the evidence offline. The document I've done now is almost like a story, if you like, because it goes in my background. It tells you how I became involved in this. It then leads into the evidence, and not only talking about the evidence, but I've put the evidential research links into that document showing the company's house proof.
Okay, so I'll just get ChatGPT to turn all of that into videos, okay, and that'll save us the stress. Okay. Either way, Gary, these videos are getting made whether you like it or not, bro, okay? I understand you're an advocate for the document. I hear you. If I put hours of research into a document, I'd be like, look at the document. I'm trying to make let's take this from an evil marketing point. Let's just look at you as a product. I want to get your product to the maximum audience, all right? That's all I'm trying to do. And whether you like it or not, it's freaking happening, mate, because I'm terrified. Okay?
No, that's good. But absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. You need the visual evidence as well. But the document is probably what's keeping me A, alive, and B, stopping them from doing anything to me under the Mental Health Act or anything like that, because it shows the verifiable proof of everything that I've told you tonight is proven in that one document. Everything.
Nah, I think they've looked at every possible outcome where they shoot you or put you in a loony bin and the world ends for some reason. For some reason, every time they mess with you, other than putting you in a tent, if they take it any further, some biblical event happens and they can't figure it out. And they get to keep turning on CERN to deal with Gary. That's the only thing that makes sense, mate. Like, we can put whatever, it's the document. They don't care about a document, Gary. They killed Princess Diana for banter. Okay, they just take you out the game. There's something weird going on here, Gary. I wonder, have you ever had like your DNA looked at, and then like the person that like the doctor looks at you and is like, Gary, I don't know how to tell you this, but this is not normal. Like, I think we need to delve deeper, Gary. Like, listen, and this isn't funny, Gary. I don't know what you're laughing at, Gary. This is not funny. Okay, we've got the donut of doom. Oh God, I need to shut up. Please just continue talking.
Let me tell you about the asteroid.
Yeah. Because that's going to fucking help. But please do.
Okay, so when I researched remember we said about the doomsday clock, that was actually managed by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. If you go and research it, you'll see Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. So I researched through the company's house records and found connections to a company called 2032 Limited. So I went on a live stream. This was around the time that I was thinking that they're going to try and pull a falsified apocalyptic event. And I went on a live stream that day, okay, and said, look, everyone, I think what they're going to try and do is falsify an asteroid hitting the Earth in 2032, which would tie in with the end of a 7-year tribulation starting this year. So I said this on this live stream. 2 days later, all over the front pages was an asteroid that might hit the Earth in 2032.
Is that the 7-mile wide one, right? Is that or is that a different one? Because there's a 7-mile wide object hurtling towards Earth. Everyone's been talking about it because it's not hurtling the right way. It's hurtling.
No, that's the 3-eye Atlas you're on about. I can tell you about that in a minute. That's actually related to what I'm doing as well. I can tell you.
Of course it is, Gary. Of course it is. Carry on.
So I published, that was then over the front pages all over the world, okay, about this asteroid. Now, the articles to do with that asteroid, nothing was predated to prior to the live stream that I had done, okay? So they claimed that they discovered that asteroid, which is a different one that you're on about. We'll come to that in a minute. It's a different, they claimed to have discovered it in December 2024, but there was no record anywhere that to show that it was discovered in 2024. So it's as if they were listening to that live stream and they wanted me to know that potentially what I'm saying and doing can influence the outcome in all of this. Now, if we talk about the 3-eye Atlas, so 3-eye Atlas was discovered in July this year. Okay, and they're claiming that it's either a comet, but there's speculation that it may be an alien mothership as well.
What was the name of it again? The what Atlas?
3-eye Atlas. Now, I didn't find out about that straight away, and I continued to look at the evidence surrounding the collider technology and found a company called Atlas Holdings, within that Atlas Holdings company, was it called Atlas Holdings? I think it was called Atlas. It was Atlas something.
These dumbasses need to stop registering businesses. Okay, they need to stop registering crap. Okay, like, listen, to whoever's watching Gary from the satellite right now, surely in an office room there is a debate going on with the board of directors about registering stuff. Like, no one other than Gary, no one's checking on this. Stop registering stuff. Just put it on a post note. Just put it on a post note. Slap it on the fridge of evil, and then check. They can see. Use some freaking string, mate. Like, just stop writing, stop putting it out there for Gary to find. It would make it. I would sleep a lot better if you could just stop putting this information out there for Gary to find. I'd be really appreciative.
The fridge of evil. I love that. I love the fridge of evil.
The donut of doom in the fridge of evil, mate. That's what you're facing. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, bro. The guys that are watching you right now are like, he's pretty much nailed that, actually. Yeah, I know.
So within the Atlas company, there's a 3I company as well. Now, Atlas is important because Atlas was the name of the experiment at CERN in 2012 where they discovered the Higgs boson or God particle. That was called Atlas.
Nah.
Okay?
Nah.
This also ties in. Now, this is a massive signal to all of you as to why what I'm doing is so critical, because the main currency producer, okay, for the world is called De La Rue.
Okay.
De La Rue went on the London Stock Exchange in 1947, the same year as the Doomsday Clock. It came off of the London Stock Exchange for the first time in, it was either July or August this year for the first time. And it was purchased by a company called Atlas Holdings Limited. Atlas again. However, Atlas Holdings Limited, you can go and look at this. Atlas Holdings Limited dissolved in January 2022, which is when I first started asking questions in Exborn manner. So what you've effectively got is a company that no longer exists, that dissolves when I started making my inquiries, that has now recently purchased the main currency producer of the world for the first time since it's come off the London Stock Exchange since 1947. All right. So what this tells us now is the main currency producer is in a void of nothingness. It doesn't even, you can't have a company that dissolved, purchase and acquire a company. It's a massive signal to everybody that how big this evidence is that I'm reporting. Now, there's also the main company in the court. The main company in the fraud is a company called Jordans and Sons Limited, okay, which is now trading as Vistra Limited.
Hang on. So the company, and again, I'm sorry, everybody, the company that was the place that made money, right?
De La Rue.
Yep, De La Rue. They, for some reason, have dissolved but been bought over. And for some reason, the word Atlas seems to be prevalent in everything.
Yes.
It's just really odd, right? So I'm following you, right? That's what you just said, right? Okay, so now carry on with the next bit because my brain's melting here.
Yeah, and of course you've got 3I Atlas, which is what we're talking about with this comet. Plus you've got Atlas was the name, as I've said, of the experiment at CERN that we've already spoken about tonight. Okay, so Atlas is quite an important word in all of this. Another big signifier that's happened recently is that the where was I going with that? So there's the main company in the fraud called Jordans and Sons Limited, now trading as Vistra, has now been connected via research to a company called EQT, where information I have says 210 billion has been funneled through into an EQT company. Well, Ghislaine Maxwell links almost immediately to a company called EQT Partners. Okay, so again, remember, we've got the connection already to Jeffrey Epstein, to CERN, the experiment with the in 2012 in April, with a meeting with Stephen Hawkins. Obviously, Jeffrey Epstein was the girlfriend of Ghislaine Maxwell, and now we've got these connections to big movements being made around the world in relation to finance, linking in through the Companies House records almost immediately to Ghislaine Maxwell. Again, right? So that's another huge signifier that something massive is happening as a result of the exposure of this evidence. So 3i Atlas, I think, is a massive deception. I actually don't think there's even that comet. I don't think that comet even exists. I think what they're going to do is try and time something, or considering timing something and blaming it on that object somehow. That's what I think they were hoping to do, hoping to plan.
Nah, Gary, I'm not going to listen. The last 5 minutes, I've been down a rabbit hole, and what I heard you say there was like, wah, wah, wah. Like 3 eyes is your third eye, right? That's commonly the third eye is what that your third eye, 3 eyes.
Yeah.
And Atlas, the Greek god, in Greek mythology, Atlas was condemned to hold up the heavens or sky for eternity. Known for being condemned to hold up the heavens for eternity, the war between the Titans and the Olympic gods, often depicted as like this is all of this. What is like, Gary? I'm not going to lie. There's so much that they're putting out in front of our face. Okay, like the whole Atlas, 3i Atlas now. That like nothing. Why this is one of these interviews, Gary. You've now changed my entire the whatever years I've got left have now been affected by Gary, right? Because we all know when we talk about whatever you want to call it, the Illuminati, the Cabal, whatever, we talk about the symbolism, how they put it in our faces. They want us to make a joke out of us. And when we talk to people like Beverly Rhodes and Danny Henderson, and we talk about the Great Awakening that seems to be happening, people are waking up to more than just religion and government. They seem to understand that there is this other thing going on. And when we have massive unknown comet / spaceships hurtling towards Earth, when we have Gary's investigation talking to biblical events, change biblical event to massive spaceship turning up, okay, whatever you want to call it. But Atlas is controlling the legend of the Titan Atlas was him holding up the skies and holding up the Earth. And we have to assume that the one that holds up and controls and holds onto the Earth controls it all, right? And it's just staring us in the face. You ruined me tonight, Gary. You've ruined. There's going to be conversations that happen at Christmas time this year that ruin part of Christmas that I'm going to be telling that are your fault.
Just blame it on me.
I'm gonna, Gary. Trust me, because it's mind blowing and it's almost comforting to have a joke about it. It's almost comforting to be like, oh, it's the third eye and it's Atlas and all that, right? It's comforting, but then the laughter stops and the brain starts going again. You see what I'm saying? And I don't really understand how you've come about, Gary, but I don't really understand wind, but I believe that it exists in his thing, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm fully invested now because I understand the sliver of your research that you've presented tonight. And now I need to understand it all. So I need the link to the documents. I need to start my journey into the lore of Gary up till this point. Because if every one of our interviews can be current Gary information, that would be incredible. Because there's so much of the backlog, and I promise I will make this series. I will give it to Gary for him to put up on his channel. And if those of you who are just tuning in now and you've just had to listen to me interrupt Gary for the last 20 minutes, I'm sorry, right? I didn't expect this. All right. I've been interviewing people a long time and it takes a lot to shake me. But CERN, children, the occult, other dimensions, magic, dominant world control, this global fraud that took place through Company's House, the replacement of that to now control us with these digital IDs. It all has just fallen into place, Gary. It was a light bulb moment for me tonight. And I hope to God when this is over, you unzip your tent and you're in a massive warehouse and you're safe. But I'm not going to take no for an answer on getting you things that are going to improve your night's sleep. Don't want to hear about it. It's going to happen. I'll just leave them and send you GPS coordinates and make a game out of it for you. Go and find them, whatever it needs to happen. But winter is coming, bro. And yeah, I'm blown away by it all. Here we go. Wendy as well. I can't really speak to Wendy. I feel you. And a big shout out to Britpack. It was Britpack's channel that we had your video on there, just to be clear. Big shout out to Britpack right there. I am definitely going to do a daytime show where I break down this 23-minute video, because I will bust chops hard in this. There is look at this guy's face. Like that's 5 minutes of Ron ranting just on this guy's face right here. But Gary, listen, you need to be coming back here every week. We need to do this every week, because I'm heavily invested now in Gary, right? I need to know how this ends, Gary. Like, we need to touch base every week, because
we all do. It's going to affect every single one of us, all of this evidence. It is going to change the world. It has to.
Well, look, no, Gary, what's going to actually happen, right? Because they can't take out the game. They would have done that by now. So at one point, you're going to be arrested for being a super terrorist, and a whole bunch of fraudulent things are going to be pinned on you. And when that happens, Gary, I'm going to be ready to fight for you, okay? I'm going to be like, tent dwelling Gary did not blow up New Zealand, okay? He did not do this, because it's going to be something mental, mate. It's going to be something mental, and I'm not having it. I'm not having it, mate. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to try and regurgitate all your facts. Could you imagine me trying to do your job? I'd be like, companies, house, mate. People, businesses, they don't exist, mate. I don't know what screenshot to look at, but it's in the PDF. You know what I mean? Like, we all need to get an understanding of this, because we've all gotten to the point with the cabal and the children that the numbers don't add up with how many kids are going missing. The scale of the missing children, I mean, even if the elites are farming their own kids to hunt, whatever, it doesn't, like, when 30,000 kids go missing just for no reason, that's a lot of kids. And I often say, Gary, the greatest gift to the cabal is an earthquake in a third world country. The minute you've got an earthquake in a third world country, how easy is it to just fudge the numbers on how many kids have died in that earthquake? It's wild. It's wild. Yep. And then you look at the weather control stuff that's going on and the satellite things, and you have to wonder, you know, how many tragic events with massive children that have gone missing line up on the weird scale of information of when CERN gets turned on and off. Because I'm going to be haunted by the child battery madness in my head for a while now, because that's the only far-fetched mad idea that accounts for all of the numbers of these missing kids.
Yeah. It's what I would, and I'll come back to, we do have to consider that all of the stuff that we're seeing is a deliberate laid up deception as a test against humanity. We have to consider that an option.
We have to consider an option that everything we've just discussed, absolutely everything we're being fed, is just for the banter of the elites. Okay, but you have to understand, we have seen this take place before. The story of the guy that lived next to the UFO research place in America that was talking about the CIA experimenting on civilians during marathons and spraying stuff all over them and all this stuff. We have to get our heads around the fact that our governments are not real. The people that control the world do not care about us. We are sheep and cattle to them. And interdimensional magic, science, whatever you want to call it, is about the only explanation that make the numbers match for me. Because we are living in a world where people get surprised when oil pipes displace small villages and all the rest of it, and we talk about sociopaths being hired to make these decisions. Listen, mate, when we get to the higher echelons of who runs this world, the darkness and the depravity that these individuals can come up with, we are not capable of fully grasping, because our brains are not twisted into a decade, century, millennia old way of life and thinking, where the 1%, do you actually understand that if the 1% and the 99% met on a field to have a fight, right? this is the thing. We outnumber them. And I'll tell you something else. Good people outnumber bad people. And we don't talk about it enough, Gary. There's a couple of channels that I watch, right, where it's like acts of kindness caught on camera that are real acts of kindness. It's not just, you know, influencers doing good stuff, but for views, right? And I like to remind myself because it happens every day. Good people do great things every single day. It doesn't sell newspapers, right? Unfortunately. But don't think for a second that evil has had a great year this year, but good and bad, the good is winning. It might not feel like it because of the media you consume, and I'm part of that problem. But by God, I'm going to be dedicating parts of my shows to showcasing the goodness in humanity. It'll be at the end of the show, and I'm not prepared for it tonight, but it will be coming because it's important to remind ourselves that they're not winning. They want to convince us that they're winning, but the minute that we all meet on a field, ChatGPT's told me like 99.9999% of times we're winning. All we have to do is run at them. We can literally move faster them out of existence. Okay, just stampede. But the world's been set up in a way where society and life has so many distractions that we justify our ignorance and our selfishness, and we're all responsible for what is happening right now. We are the wet wipe chapter of humanity. Hundreds of years ago, people would be shedding, fighting for what they believe in. And we're so fear-mongered and living under a blanket of control that those days are just terrifying to so many people, standing up for what you believe in and with the fear of no one standing with you, but losing everything to the cause. Look at Gary, right? Gary is getting deleted, mate. Someone right now is rapid just deleting Gary's files, okay? That's the reality. Gary's in a tent, mate, okay? Like, do you know what, actually? The government will probably try and say that you don't live in a tent and you're an eccentric millionaire. That'll probably be the tactic they use on you. It'll be CGI'd Gary on a lilo in the Bahamas with a cocktail drink. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's so true. But if anyone has a layer that they're not using, please reach out to Gary. That would be great. If you know what I'm saying, a discreet World War II bunker will do. But I mean, really, we need to get Gary a layer. Gary needs a layer. He needs one of those computers with 14 screens, Gary, right? That you can just sit in front of and just be like, I don't know what any of this does, but it looks mint. We need to do something. And I'm sorry that Ron has ranted. We're going to wind down now because I literally can't take any more. Right? I literally can't take any more, Gary. It's been incredible, this discussion. It's incredible that, and lucky that we can boil it down for the people like me in the world to understand all of this, because it is a lot, it is complicated, it is real, okay? I use comedy as a coping mechanism, so don't think that the laughter at the end of this is just for you at home so that you can all process, because this is really scary. It's really scary when we start looking into global fraud of hundreds of trillions, Gary, like 21 trillion. Just don't know where I don't know where it's going. It's mad. And the only reason that this makes any sense is when you start bringing into the global greed for control and power. CERN, it all has an element of that. You could argue that, they're trying to change our reality with the Mandela effects. We could argue they're trying to open up portals, blah, whatever. But it's dark. It's dark, Gary, because when things are kept behind closed doors like this, nothing good ever comes from it. And you know yourself, remember Dolly the sheep, right? When we found out about Dolly the sheep, can you actually imagine the crap they had developed and we got to find out about Dolly the sheep? And do you remember everyone losing their tits over this sheep? Okay. The minute that they bring out the Super Olympics, where all performance and gene splicing techniques are allowed, China's splicing a human and a dolphin together and winning the swimming every year, okay? Because they are ready, okay? What do you think is going to come from what's? Just give us your closing statement, Gary, before I bore everyone to teeth. Give us your closing analogy on all this.
What I would just say is we've obviously talked about some massive subjects here. all right, that most people will struggle to believe, will struggle to understand. But if we bring it back down to a very basic level here on what I'm saying to everybody, we 100% are living under a criminal financial system that deliberately and knowingly allows the laundering of money through conflicts, terrorism, and crimes against children. That's a fact. That's a very grounded level. So based on that alone, we have to stop this. You cannot have a government going against its own laws. Okay, the whole thing has to stop. It has to stop. So I think that's just, bringing it back to the realistic 100% fact level. That's the situation we're in.
So no big deal then. Just a global corrupt system of impossibility.
Nothing's
Great.
impossible when you've got more innocence, like you said. When there's more people that are good than bad, then we can change everything.
Yeah. But Gary, they've got the donut of doom, right? Like we're too dumb. The fridge of evil, man, and the donut of doom. We're too dumb to really know what the donut of doom can do. Like I'm not smart enough to know what a God particle is, bro. Like I'm not smart enough to know. So if they're telling us this, it's the Dolly the sheep thing again, bro. It's like, what is actually going on? Do you know what? I'm done. I want to go and lie down in a safe space with some ice cream and a blanket and like some American Office and just a comforting, familiar environment. That's what I need after this. But I'm actually going to do another live stream where I'm going to decompress from this because I need to say some things. So we're going to be doing a live call-in show after this. It's called what the hell did I call it? The viewer's voice or something. It's you guys picking the topics. It's you guys bringing up the subjects that we're going to be discussing. And I just want to hear from you guys. I want to know what matters to you guys and what subjects we cover here matter to you, what we're missing out on. Because that's what really matters to me is the audience and you guys knowing that you are important and need to be heard. And that's what the next show is about. Gary, I don't even want to say thank you, Gary, because that's a lie. I'm not going to mean it. Like I'm ruined. The worst part is I'm going to try and regurgitate all of this to family members this week, and I'm going to sound mental. And I can't wait to have the PowerPoint presentation, Gary. Can't wait because I'm going to make them sit through it all.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ron, for letting me tell you all about it. It's good.
You've told us this much, Gary. It's tiny bit. So listen, I'm sorry. I would love to do questions. In fact, do you know what? I promise you, when we get Gary back on, which it will be next week, I'm going to bully him. We'll do like the first bit. We'll do Q&A, and then we can get on with the University of Gary because this is the one, mate. This is the one, and the more people that hear it more often. Also, your TikTok. Make sure you follow Gary on TikTok. Why, Gary? Did you send me any of your links?
No, I don't think I did.
Brilliant, mate. That's great. That's so basically brilliant. So, what to do? Can you send me a link to something after? Can you send me a link just now?
Yeah.
You send me a link just now because I can put it in the description now. Otherwise, I'll never do it. And like I say, I'm fully indoctrinated into I'm not going to say the Church of Gary or the cult of Gary, but the information monster that is Gary. Links here, Ron. That is not helpful. I mean, it is, but
it's showing the asteroid that I was telling you about.
It's showing the what, mate? You totally cut out. Okay, nice.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay, mate. When you were sending that link, we can't actually hear you when you send that link. So if I heard something about asteroid, I'm hoping it wasn't the asteroid is about to hit the tent or something. I'm assuming it's not. But
no, I literally went into my TikTok to get the link for you, and what was on my screen was the asteroid on the front pages where somebody has put that on TikTok.
Yeah, they're definitely not listening. Definitely not, mate. Definitely not. Right. So I put Gary's TikTok. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on. Okay, I put Gary's TikTok in the description. I've definitely spelled Gary wrong, but that's fine. Oh wow.
Can you also put my mobile number out, please, Ron?
What I can do is I'm pretty sure if I put your mobile out, there's ways for YouTube to be tricked into thinking I'm doxing you by haters. So I'll do it on my channel. So if you're to protect the Shaun Attwood channel from any of that stuff, I'll slap it in my. I'm just gonna give out my mobile number. You're mental, but yeah, okay. Send me your mobile number now, and I'm gonna set that up now, and then so that it's done on my channel. Now. Oh wait, hang on a second. Hang on a minute, Gary. I'm waffling to myself. What I'm going to need to do, that's Gary's number, right? Give me 1 second, everyone, while Ron mumbles to himself. I'm going to fix this. We're doing this on my channel, not Shaun's channel. So give me a second. This is my channel. We go over here. Everyone can stare at Frozen Gary. If you're watching this and you're not subscribed to my channel, ProjectROOQ, make sure that you are, obviously. I'm just putting Gary's info, right? Gary's link.
I've just sent you my YouTube channel link as well.
Right, nice one, mate. I am just totally screwing all this up royally, so just bear with me. Copy link. That's the first one. Then Gary's mobile number, because he's actually off his nut. There we go. Then Gary's YouTube channel. Okay, and then we copy this. All right. And then we save in a minute. I'm sorry to do this online, everybody, but if I don't do this, I will forget, and it's too important. Apologies to any of my previous guests who said I said I would do this for, and then I completely forgot. Don't think that you're not important. It's just CERN and baby batteries. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So now, everyone, if you refresh on Shaun's channel, you'll have both Gary's links. Over on my channel, you have both Gary's links plus Gary's mobile number. Yeah. All right. So, Gary, mate, we'll talk again next week. That's how this is going to work, Gary. I'm now going to bully
Cheers,
you.
Ron.
And
thank you so much.
Listen, thank you. I think, Gary. I mean, I imagine this is the sort of thing that people get from like skydiving, where they just traumatize themselves for fun. That's what I feel like this is. It's like conversational skydiving, where afterwards I'm like, "Oh, mate, did you see what just happened there?" Right. Anyway, listen. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Gary. Big shout out to everyone who's been supportive, the mods, Shaun Attwood channel, all of that. Thank you so much. I will be back in about 3 or 4 minutes on this channel. You will get a notification. Gary and I will be back next week, even though Gary doesn't know it yet. He's just started a podcast with me, and that's what's happening. So thank you very much, Gary. Thanks to everyone else, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.